Representative Curtis may already be a millionaire, but that didn't stop him from using this crisis to make a few bucks, said Kyle Herring, president of the Accountable.us. We know that Curtis was trying to game the market for his own financial benefit, and he may have used confidential information to inform his trading strategy. Congress should launch an investigation to get to the bottom of what Curtis did and hold him accountable for any wrongdoing. We need to send a strong signal to our elected officials that attempts to profit off this crisis will not be tolerated. It's easy to lock the people up. It's easy to force people to wear a mask. It's easy to force people to get the jab when you're making money on it. It's easy to be in bed with China. I mean, this is why, again, I don't care what party you're in. This is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is unethical, it's immoral, and it's wrong. And welcome back, guys. I want to thank Trent for spending some time with us. And so we're going to jump into John Curtis here and really try to expose him, because there's, again, this is what the media should do. So before we start, I just want to give a shout out to Innovive and just thank them. I mean, it costs money to produce this. We don't do this full time. Obviously, we're very much amateurs, but they do help in covering some of the cost to producing this. So please, if you're looking for water, check them out. I believe in what they're doing, and I believe it is a real need. And the other thing is, if it's something, if you are a business owner and you want to support us, we would love your support. We need support. We want to get billboards. We have so much we want to do as we can get funding, because we do need to take on the media here, because the media here is the problem, as we're going to talk about today. And if you want to, you can just shoot us an email at info@wearethepeople.org. Again, that's info@wearethepeople.org. And we would appreciate any support, or you can always donate or buy something on our website as well. So enough said, let's get into this. First thing I want to do, I've got a real problem with the media in Utah. I think this was a really clear case of how they run cover for these politicians, whether it's Cox, Curtis, and the list goes on. Their whole MO has clearly been keep the people asleep. We have the furry incidents in Payson, where you've got the kids standing up against the furries and saying, hey, we don't want to be scratched and bitten, and having these kids spray Febreze on us. Salt Lake Trib calls out these conservative kids and harasses them, and you're thinking, okay, KSL Deseret News is going to stand up and expose the furries. Well, what does Deseret News and KSL do? They say these kids are troublemakers. So it just has become very clear that the MO of our media in Utah is to keep you asleep. And so I want to share a video as we start this deep dive into John Curtis. And again, this is not anything personal about Curtis, because this doesn't matter who it is. Republican, Democrat, I don't care who it is, but anyone who's acting in this way, can we feel good about them serving us as a public servant in a time where our nation is literally under siege? So I want to start off by playing this Project Veritas video here.
What is the trigger law?
For here in Utah, abortion is completely illegal.
Does the congressman agree with that?
No, he does not like the trigger laws. He has not come out and stated it. That's a problem.
Why can't he say it?
He won't win. People think we're a rhino, and people think we're an establishment conservative. So it's like...
So how does he make people think that, try to keep that establishment? How can he...
He stays quiet.
But don't you think it's better that he's not here then?
Yeah. That's kind of our strategy. It's kind of what we're hoping for. I don't usually share this with people, so I
James O'Keefe here in Utah, following the upcoming congressional race. Daniel Stevens is the field director for Congressman John Curtis of Utah. Curtis is currently battling Chris Herod in the upcoming Republican primary to retain a seat on Capitol Hill for a third term. That primary is June 28th. Stevens spoke with one of our journalists recently and explained how Representative Curtis switched parties from Democrat to Republican in order to win the seat in Utah's heavily red 3rd District.
John actually won the Republican nomination.
As a Republican?
As a Republican. He switched I think he switched that year to be able to run.
So he only switched just so he could run as a Republican?
Yeah.
Why?
He saw that it was ineffective to be a Democrat in Utah Valley or Utah County. And so
They just won't vote for you.
they just won't vote for you.
Stevens goes on to say that Curtis has intentionally hidden or misrepresented his views on key issues to voters in order to win and retain his seat. And the field director attributes some of the congressman's success to voter ignorance in Utah.
It might not be the truth, right? That's just
It goes back to the voters.
exactly. They're not willing to do the research. They want it to be easy.
It's voter ignorance.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. So,
So we can manipulate that
yeah,
and use it to win.
yeah.
Do you think Utah people really?
I mean, I'm sure you caught that. Voter ignorance. We can use that to win. Again, and this is my frustration. It's not just John Curtis. It's a cultural problem here in Utah. Why are we ignorant in Utah? Yes, it's our politicians, but politicians are going to be politicians. Dirty politicians. I mean, you look across every state, they're dirty politicians. What is the check? It's the media. It's the media that should be the one digging in and doing what we are doing here. And because the media doesn't, we have a population of people who thinks literally all is well in Zion and there's nothing to worry about. Let's go on.
Do you think Utah people really notice with his policies if he's a registered Republican?
The idealistic part of me wants to say yes, but I know.
Yeah,
no.
he knows we're not paying
don't
attention.
No. And in Utah, which was fascinating because most of the sentiment that I hear about Romney is disapproval, but it's also because I work with a lot of crazies. Not with John Curtis, but I get phone calls and texts from constituents all over the place and
Crazy.
the crazy. Yeah.
And that's crazy Republicans.
Stevens thought about voters' inability to make informed decisions, even calling some in his own party crazy. Stevens goes on to explain Curtis's stance on abortion, which they believe would cost him the election. Part of their strategy is to keep Curtis in Washington away from the voters.
What is a trigger law?
So when Roe v. Wade gets overturned, right?
Right.
Or when whatever the language is there, because I still have no idea what's going on.
Right.
Some states, especially the state of Utah, has what they call a trigger law, which basically says the moment that's gone, this is a new law of the land, right?
Which is
For here in Utah, abortion's completely illegal, which is fascinating. I never thought that Governor Cox would get into something so
egregious.
yeah, exactly, restrictive. I don't think it solves any problems. I think you're going to run into a lot more unhealthy, marginalized communities that get, unproductive care.
Yeah. Does the congressman agree with that?
No, he does not like the trigger laws.
And he stated that.
He has not come out and said.
So I guess, does that surprise you that John Curtis is, against the trigger laws and against, allegedly pro-life, that he's pro-choice? Well, if you realize he's been a Democrat his whole life, up until an opportunity came to run for Congress, and all of a sudden he conveniently switched to being a Republican. I mean, I think he was in his 40s. I don't know how old, maybe even 50 when he ran for office. I'm not sure the age exactly, but when he decided to become a Republican. And I just think someone like me, if all of a sudden I switch and say I'm a Democrat, how do you do that? Where's your value structure? I mean, and I think that's the reality is, did his values all completely change overnight when he decided I want to run for office as a Republican? Or is he, like so many others, including Cox, infiltrating the Republican Party and just pushing? And that's what's for you to see today. So how has he actually voted? Has he voted as a Republican, as a conservative? Or is he a wolf in sheep's clothing? And so let's actually go through and take a look at some of the ways he's voted here. So in ratings.conservative.org, he was listed at 155 as his conservative ratings, 71. Actually, even less conservative than Liz Cheney. As we go on, let's look a little bit more into how he voted. When they wanted to vote to fund a federal vaccine database, again, if you don't understand why that's a concern, then maybe this isn't an issue to you. But when you understand that the whole world is about to change because of AI and data is the new gold, I'm not comfortable with my government having a database with my vaccine status, and especially with where they're going with digital ID. So again, he's okay with that. Advancing warrantless surveillance of Americans via FISA reauthorization without conservative reforms. Well, again, one of the few Republicans to vote for that. This is an interesting one too, because you're going to see, you've probably seen his commercial. In fact, I'm going to play it for you later today. He says, we need to build the wall. Well, guess what? Last time he was running for office, he said, here's his ad. No more broken promises. It's time to end illegal immigration once for all. Tell Congress to build the wall. This was an ad from, there he goes, John Curtis. Well, once he's in office, his tune completely changed once election season was over. Curtis pulls campaign ads on border wall and sanctuary cities. This was in 2017. Congressional candidate and Provo Republican mayor, they got that wrong, Democrat mayor he was, has removed 2 Facebook ads he posted online calling for Congress to build a U.S. border wall and stop sanctuary cities. So again, pulling those ads, not just for the border, but also sanctuary cities. Curtis told the Tribune that his team underestimated how contentious these posts were and took them down after they were criticized for being hostile. Curtis has said, again, who is this guy? What else does he say about the wall? Well, Utah Senate Republican candidate John Curtis says border wall carries pent-up racism. When we have literally domestic terrorists, I mean, people, look, everyone's concerned about the border. And we have all these people, Republicans saying, I'm going to put me in office. I'm going to fix the wall. He's been in office. He campaigned back that he would fix the wall. And what does he do once he's in? He says, well, it's racist to have the wall. Is it a surprise our borders are wide open when we have Republicans, or should I say Democrats or rhinos out there who care more about power? Let's go on. One of the other things you'll see in his commercial, he talks about deporting illegals. How did he actually vote? Well, Representatives Salazar and Curtis actually sponsored this bill for an amnesty plan for all the illegals. So what are we to believe, John Curtis? Is it that you really want to deport and you want to build a wall, or is it campaign season again and it's time to you've paid your consultants and you found out that right now the thing that will get you elected is these issues, and so you're saying what needs to be said like you did last time and then voted the opposite way. There you go. Here's the 6. Again, it's only 6 Republicans. And there's a lot of rhinos in this country. And again, John Curtis, one of those, voting for amnesty for all the illegals here. How about the drag shows? I know that's a real concerning thing to a lot of, look, it is grooming our children. How does Curtis feel? Have you heard him stand up against it? No, you haven't. But what you have seen is right here, 8 House Republicans voted against Chip Roy's amendment to defund drag shows at the Department of Defense. Again, is this a conservative? Does this man represent Utah and our values? Or is he, like Cox, a wolf in sheep's clothing? Republican John Curtis. All right, now let's get to the real issue. This is a big issue. We're going to spend a little time because, the world is on the verge of changing. I think everyone is aware with the emergence of AI, we are about to walk into a very different world. They're using AI as a means of climate lockdowns, climate control, climate this. Everything is, how much we travel, 15-minute cities. Why? Because of the climate. They are using climate as a mechanism to control the people. John Curtis isn't just on board with climate change. He is leading and created the Republican Climate Caucus, which is making it, instead of it's a leftist issue, now all of a sudden it's both parties pushing it. Republican John Curtis supports climate change ideology as he flirts with potential Senate bid. Republicans were a force at the climate summit. Now what? And you can read these articles. We're going to have them all up on our website. When it comes to Trump, does this guy support Trump or no? Well, in break with Trump, House GOP forms a group on climate change. How does that affect Utah? Well, Nate Blowden, he's a rep. He's actually one of these reps that shake my head at how do we have people like him in Utah. But he says, we will lose the 2034 Olympic bid if Utah leaders think that talking about climate change is enough. So what do we need to do in Utah more than talk? Well, it means implementing 2030 agenda. Andy Prucci says he's gotten a lot of Republicans talking about environment and conservation-related policies. Many of them would have never engaged in these policy discussions or been part of the debate without the leadership of John Curtis. In other words, it's one thing to be on board with climate change. It's another thing to be at all the UN and global meetings and then leading other Republicans, those who are supposed to be opposing this push. He's leading them to be part of the movement. Again, talking about Trump. His ads now talk about supporting Trump. Well, where was he? Well, he called for a full impeachment inquiry and censure of President Trump. January 6th Commission. I've got a real problem with this. I think anyone who's done any investigating into January 6th outside of the mainstream narrative, especially now that we know the FBI was involved, we've seen the real footage and found out it is exactly not what it's been portrayed to, that we've had many good, honest citizens, people who didn't even go into the Capitol, who have been targeted by the FBI and are in jail, including someone we had on this show. Now he has a wife and 7 kids who have no father in the home, a wife who was a stay-at-home mom because her husband's locked up in jail for being at the Capitol. Here are 35 House Republicans who voted for the January. I mean, I hope we're seeing who this man is. John Curtis of Utah. And now the insider trading. Here we go. List of members of Congress who beat the S&P 500 this year. Proof that Congress is just one giant hedge fund. John Curtis right there at the top. And if you notice, he is above Nancy Pelosi. John Curtis, Dan Crenshaw, Nancy Pelosi below him. It's unethical to say the least. Here we go. Here's another year. Third, again ahead of Nancy Pelosi. We've got one of the things Congress does is they declare war. Well, when you have the power to declare war, which is one of the most horrible things in this world, and especially when you are pushing us into World War III, but you're now investing, one of 20 members of Congress who are investing in weapons and weapons contractors and that will profit from us going to World War III. Are your motives to get us into war to make money? Or are you motivated to protect our children? Again, this stuff, I don't want to have to ask. This is why this should be illegal. We shouldn't have to question your motives, John Curtis. Why are you investing in Lockheed Martin and Raytheon right on the verge of war, actually before? John Curtis, a Republican of Utah, purchased between $1,000 and $1,500 in Raytheon shares in June of 2021. Think what was going on then. He also held Lockheed Martin stock, but public disclosures appear to show that he sold it in November 2020. Again, 46 members of Congress have violated a conflict of interest law. And guess what? One of those was John Curtis. Between them are numerous other Republican Democrats who alike have consistently failed to abide by the Stock Act. There you go, John Curtis. Utah congressman, again, sold up to $15,000. You remember when First Republican Bank had that crisis? Well, guess who happened to know about that right before and sold up to $15,000 of stocks right before it collapsed? You know, sometimes they say, well, we have other people managing our money. You're in Congress. You have insider information. These are these are not coincidences. Utah Rep. John Curtis bought stocks boosted by coronavirus, disclosures indicate. As the coronavirus pandemic turned into a public health emergency in the United States, Republican John Curtis purchased stock in several companies expected to benefit directly from responding to the outbreak or stay-at-home orders. The purchase of stocks in a now popular video conference provider Zoom a laboratory producing a rapid result test for COVID. I think that was the one that Trent called him out on, that he did buy, even though he tried to say he didn't. Tapping, a firm tapped by the Federal Reserve to buy up bonds and video game makers all appear apt to profit off the crisis. And this article right here, Utah Rep. Curtis, COVID-related stock trades prompt watchdogs calls for investigation. Accountable U.S., a leading government watchdog group, filed a complaint with the Office of Congressional Ethics to investigate Utah Representative John Curtis for potential violations of the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act and the House Ethic Rules. Recent congressional filings revealed how Curtis traded stocks that stood to benefit from the health crisis or congressional action such as, like we mentioned, Zoom, Abbott, Amazon. I mean, everyone that grew, well, your businesses were being shut down. Everyone that's growing, he knew, and he was investing in these. Representative Curtis may already be a millionaire, but that didn't stop him from using this crisis to make a few bucks, said Kyle Herring, president of the Accountable.us. We know that Curtis was trying to game the market for his own financial benefit, and he may have used confidential information to inform his trading strategy. Congress should launch an investigation to get to the bottom of what Curtis did and hold him accountable for any wrongdoing. We need to send a strong signal to our elected officials that attempts to profit off this crisis will not be tolerated. It's easy to lock the people up. It's easy to force people to wear masks. It's easy to force people to get the jab when you're making money on it. It's easy to be in bed with China. I mean, this is why, again, I don't care what party you're in. This is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is unethical, it's immoral, and it's wrong. Let's go on. A periodic transcript report recently filed by Representative Curtis strongly suggests that he may have used non-public information related to public health crisis caused by the spread of COVID-19 that he derived from his official position for his own personal profit. I don't know. I don't know how you justify putting this guy back. Now we're going to give him a raise. We're going to move him from the House to the Senate. On March 4th, 2020, Curtis purchased up to $15,000 in stock in the video conferencing service Zoom, which has since seen an increase of 20-fold due to the increase in remote work during the crisis. The same day, he purchased up to $15,000 of 6 stocks. I mean, I think you guys are getting the hint here. I mean, you can continue to read on. We're going to have this stuff, whether it's banks, whether it's the coronavirus. Again, clearly we have some representatives that are using their ability to, again, it's like giving athletes the right to vote or the right to bet and gamble on their own games they're playing. You can read through here. Again, we'll have this on the website. I think you're starting to see the point. We have a problem with insider trading here. And what does Donald Trump Jr. have to say about this? The last thing Utah needs is another Mitt Romney. John Curtis is a rhino, the only Senate candidate in the country still refusing to endorse Donald Trump for president. And obviously Romney is encouraging Curtis to run for that race. So I don't want to belittle or go too much into depth on this. I think you're hopefully you're starting to get the hint. I will read a few other things here that I think need to be brought up because literally there's just so much on him. So I want to give a shout out to Jamie Eves we had on our show the other day. She put this together, just a few things, and we'll put this on our website as well for you. But I just want to run through this with you, just kind of hit some high note things. He's involved with the World Economic Forum. He attended the Glasgow Climate Summit in October of 31st, 2021. Again, if you're not familiar with the World Economic Forum, I highly recommend you understand who they are. There is a push for globalism, and these guys are an unelected group of people who are working with the UN to push global agendas, Agenda 2030. I want nothing to do with them. He supports the United Nations climate agenda, attended the Davos, again, one of these World Economic Forum meetings 2022. The people that are there, it's Klaus Schwab, it's Bill Gates. I mean, it's all the bad actors. He was chairman of the Utah County Democratic Party. So it's not just that he's a Democrat, but he's chairman of the party. Okay. tell me how you go from in 2002 to 2003 being chairman of the Democratic Party to now all of a sudden being, now I'm a Republican. And again, I think once you, hopefully from what you've seen, the way he votes, he's a Republican, as they said, who just tries to stay quiet so he can stay off. It's because I think the fact of the matter is he probably cares less about the Democratic values and the Republican values more than being in office. And it seems like his biggest priority right now is gaming the system, which he's doing a very good job. So he's probably happy to vote wherever he needs to vote to stay in office. He voted for H.R. 550, the Immunization Infrastructure Modernization Act, which advanced a 400 million government vaccine tracking system. Not down with that. Voted for H.R. 6201, which imposed costly new mandates on struggling businesses and advanced billions in spending. Again, he talks about cutting spending. I think he needs to go back and change his voting record. Voted for S937, which provided the Department of Justice bureaucrats overreaching new authority via COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. This stuff's insane. Voted for H.R. 391, which channeled billions of taxpayer funds overseas via the Global Health Security Act. Voted for H.R. 4369, which increased unnecessary government spending on the pharmaceutical industry. And again, you look where their money's coming from and how much money he's getting from Big Pharma. We haven't even gotten into that, where he's getting his money from. There's so much here. Voted for H.R. 3593, which mandated $50 billion for clean energy and climate change. Sponsored H.R. 6637, which offers amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants. We've talked about that. Spent much of 2020 and 21 pushing mask and vaccine mandates through social media and other platforms. Well, why was he pushing that? Probably because he was making money on that. Honestly, I think anyone who didn't see through the whole scam with what happened in 2020 and 2021, if you were in office and you didn't see and you were part of the agenda, I'm sorry, you should be removed. We had regular lay people seeing through the garbage. And if you're in office and your job is to protect us and be a watchman on the tower and you have insider information and you can't see the corruption behind that and the global agenda, shame on you. You should be removed. You should step down. Didn't know what ESG scoring was when asked in April by a delegate. Again, how can you fight a war if you don't even know what's going on around you? Refuses to take a stand against CRT, critical race theory. He's endorsed by Cox and Romney. Tried to vote to censor Trump. Voted to ratify the ERA. The list goes on. Mike Lee, I agree with you here. If you're a Republican, you have a climate change agenda, you shouldn't be in office. And then we get into stocks. I think most of the stuff we've covered. We do have SB 54, which somehow we've got to get rid of. We do have this. This really comes down to two things. Besides all the election integrity issues and the cheating that goes on in this state, one of the reasons, not even Arizona, and everyone knows about the election issues in Arizona. I will tell you, Utah is way worse than Arizona. But not even Arizona has universal mail-in voting, where the elections are decided by the average low information voter. So he comes in with millions of dollars. And these are the ads that the average person who's not watching this maybe listens to KSL, which is here. So you've seen how KSL and Deseret News spin things to put the propaganda. So now I want you to watch this and see what you think.
John Curtis is a strong conservative leader with Utah values. As our senator, John Curtis will fight to finish the border wall and deport criminal illegal immigrants. Curtis will...
Did he not say that? He was going to build the border and deport and stop sanctuary cities and then get into office last time and do the exact opposite thing. Why is the media not talking about this?
Curtis will support law enforcement and keep Utah families safe.
I don't disagree with that.
John Curtis will defend our Second Amendment.
He's been good there.
The right to life.
How about that? Protect the right to life. We already saw the whole thing with where he stands on abortion.
Conservative Republican John Curtis. He'll fight for Utah's values. Conservative values for Utah.
So, we're in a place where we cannot depend on KSL and our conservative talk shows and all the good people out there that want to be informed. That's what frustrates me is the good people out there that didn't watch the debate. They don't have time. They're not digging in there and surely don't know about our show. And they're not hearing this, and they're not going to go look online and do the research that some of the great people in the state are doing. most good conservative people, they're going to take a few minutes on their drive into work and they're going to listen to KSL. You know what they're going to hear from KSL? You already heard it. They're going to hear them talk about Cox and what a great man he is. Talk about Curtis. Talk about the fact there's no corruption in this state. How Utah is succeeding. How we're everyone wants to move to Utah and the best economy. But there is a darker side to Utah, and anyone who's been watching the shows knows how corrupt this state. It was ranked second in most corrupt state by Best Life for good reason. Anyone who watched this show knows about the corruption with Spencer Cox. They know about Curtis. They know about, you want to go down the line of in their House, in our Senate, and our state reps, pushing digital ID, pushing us towards the fourth industrial revolution, the fact that we're in bed with China more than any other state. Again, we've done shows on this. It's documented. We're building smart cities. We are headed down a progressive, dangerous road. And the average person who's driving to work, who cares about their family, who wants to be informed, is hearing propaganda. And they don't know it. So I'm going to ask you guys, share this. Have the courage to speak up. I'm not asking you guys to make the sacrifices to show up and put on a podcast and find a way to make all this stuff happen or run for office. But our founding fathers, in a time that I think was just as significant as the time we're living in, if this may be more so, a few dedicated men and women, less than 3%, decide to sacrifice their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor for their children, for us, so that we could be free, so that the average person, the average nobody, could go on to do anything in life, could become anything they could dream of. And we've achieved that. And right now, we're on the verge of losing that. And I don't think people are going to realize how on the verge we are losing that until later this year when the crap hits the fan and all of a sudden people see that COVID was nothing compared to what's coming because our borders have been invaded. And it's been allowed by our politicians because our dollar is being crushed, not only by the reckless spending, but people don't put together the sanctioning. We are spending, and then we are sanctioning all the other countries. So the countries are saying, oh, guess what? We can get by without the U.S. dollar. We can get by on the without the petrodollar. We can get by the BRICS nations. We are on the verge of seeing a radical transformation in this world. And you've got the elites, the people of the World Economic Forum, the people at Davos, the people of the United Nations, the elite, and with Biden and most of our politicians, including Curtis, who are trying to build a brand new, brave world. And what it's going to come down to is there enough people like you and I who care about freedom, who care about liberty, and are willing to pay the price? Because if there's enough of us, and we only need 3% who are willing to stand up and fight, to share, to wake people up. It is a battle for the mind of men. If we can wake up enough people and expose the corruption, it's there. It's not conspiracy. This is reality. It's crazy that people are so naive today that they just were going to blindly trust politicians and that anyone who challenges them must be the crazy one. How far have we come from a nation of founding fathers who overthrew their government, who taught that government is like fire, a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Now we just blindly trust, and to question them becomes the insane thing. Anyways, I'm going to encourage you, please share with 5, 10 people. We've got to get this information out there. We can only do so much. We're asking you to do your part. Put together your own content if you don't like this. I get it, we're amateurs. But if we do not start taking on this corporate media that is running cover, the propaganda machines in Utah, our children will pay a price that is worse beyond anything you can imagine unless you've read the Gulag Archipelago and you know what happened in the Soviet Union and Russia and China and Cambodia in the last century. So thank you guys for being the type of people that watch this, that care about being informed, that are not just interested in walking around as a robot, listening to the programmed media. Thank you for caring, and thank you for sharing, and thank you for fighting with us. The fact of the matter is we know who wins. The end is already set. We know who wins. The only question is, what will our role be in, and how will we be remembered for eternity? Because I promise you, this is a battle that will be remembered for eternity. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to our sponsors. We need more. And God bless you guys. God bless America, and God bless Utah.